The mysteries of disappearances in the most remote corners of America's national parks continue to stir people's minds. Every year, hikers and rangers disappear in these wild and unexplored places, leaving behind only unanswered questions. What happens to those who disappear in the deep forests and steep slopes? Why do their tracks break off in the most unexpected places? And why do searches take months but to no avail? Today we will tell you about 3 of the most mysterious disappearances of rangers, which still have not found a logical explanation. The stories of Richard Edwards, Trevor Green, and Lawrence Lee Williams have stunned not only colleagues and search parties, but everyone who has tried to solve these mysteries. Why did an experienced ranger leave his equipment behind and disappear as if swallowed by the earth? Why did the footprints of one of the best experts who knew every trail break off in a place that had just been checked? And what could have caused the people working in these woods to feel an inexplicable anxiety and fear that defies all explanation? Richard Edwards, a 32-year-old ranger with 8 years of experience, was known for his dedication and superior wilderness survival skills. In October 2001, he went on a routine check of a remote part of Sequoia National Park. The area Richard was headed to was known for its challenging terrain. Steep slopes, dense forest, and lack of marked trails made it difficult to access even for experienced hikers. Richard planned to return in 3 days, but he had not made contact by the appointed time. His colleagues, accustomed to his punctuality, immediately sounded the alarm. Thus began one of the strangest search operations in the park's history. A search party, including rangers, volunteers, and dog handlers, began surveying Richard's intended route. The first find was his gear left near the beginning of the trail. His rucksack, water, dry rations, and navigational aids lay neatly folded, as if he had deliberately left them there. This immediately raised questions. Why would an experienced ranger go deep into the forest without the minimum equipment? His tracks led toward one of the most remote and unexplored areas of the park. The tracks were clear for the first 2 kilometers, but then they broke off on a hillside covered in thick moss. No signs of a struggle or other tracks were found. After 2 weeks of searching, when hope that Richard could be found alive had all but faded, a group of volunteers came across his campsite. The site was 10 kilometers from his intended route and was meticulously equipped. A tent, a fire pit, and the remains of food indicated that Richard had been living there for several days. The odd thing was, however, that the camping area had been surveyed before, and there had been nothing there then. A month after the search began, Richard's body was found 5 kilometers from his campsite. It was lying in a low area between 2 steep slopes, an area that had been searched before. The site had only attracted attention because a local hunter had noticed a flock of crows circling over the area. The body was in relatively good condition for a man who died a month ago, which raised doubts among experts. They found laceration marks on his clothes that at first glance could have been made by wild animals. However, the marks were strange. They did not match the claws of a bear or wolf, but they also did not resemble human claws. Richard's hands had deep scratches, as if he had waded through thick bushes. Cause of death remains unclear. Forensic examination found no signs of poisoning, injuries that could have caused death, or signs of dehydration. This only added to the mystery. How could an experienced ranger die while in relative proximity to his campsite? The biggest mystery was Richard's behavior in his final days. Why had he left his gear at the start of the trail? Why did he choose to go so deep into the woods, ignoring the standard routes? Why was his campsite and body found in places that had already been explored? Some colleagues recalled that in the weeks before his disappearance, Richard had mentioned feeling anxious, but wrote it off as fatigue. He talked about strange noises that he had allegedly heard during a previous patrol, but did not show the recordings, if they existed, to anyone. The official theory was that Richard could have been the victim of an attack by a large animal, such as a bear or a cougar. However, the lack of signs of a struggle and the strange marks on his clothes did not fit this hypothesis. Some have speculated that Richard may have gotten lost and panicked, leading to his death. However, this does not explain why he left behind equipment that could have saved his life. A few months after Richard Edwards' case was closed, the story of his disappearance began to take on strange new details. One of the rangers involved in the search operation stated that he noticed unusual footprints at the campsite. They were barely recognizable, as if made by a creature much lighter than a human, but with disproportionately large feet. This information did not make it into the official reports, but sparked a new wave of rumors. Later, the park archivist, going through old documents, came across a report from 1967. It told of a similar disappearance of a ranger in the same neighborhood. His body was never found, but co-workers said he had also complained of strange noises and a feeling of being followed before he disappeared. It culminated in a discovery made by a local hunter in early winter. He came across a secluded patch of woods not far from where Richard's body had been found. In the snow, he noticed a circle of strange markings resembling paw prints that suddenly broke off, as if the creature had taken off or disappeared into thin air. In the center of the circle lay a compass that did not belong to Richard, but was from his equipment. When the compass was taken to the park office, its metal surface was found to have barely recognizable scratches on it, as if someone or something had tried to engrave symbols. The meaning of the marks remained unclear, but one expert noted that they resembled ancient runes known in the folklore of indigenous tribes. After that, park officials finally closed the area where Richard was found, calling it a danger zone for tourists. The official version remained the same, an animal attack. But those who knew the story are sure that the forest hides a secret that no one is yet able to solve. In May 1999, Trevor Green, a 34-year-old ranger with more than a decade of experience, went on another patrol walk in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. His job was to check out the popular Alum Cave Trail, which was frequently visited by hikers. Trevor was known for his attention to detail, knowledge of the park, and impeccable preparation for any contingency. The day was clear with a slight breeze, and the park looked habitually quiet. Trevor informed his team that he would be in touch in 2 hours. However, after the allotted time, he had not responded to calls on his radio. Colleagues initially thought his device may have malfunctioned, but when he still hadn't returned by the evening, the alarm was raised. A search operation was organized the next morning. Rangers, volunteers, and even experienced canine handlers with dogs took part. They began surveying the section of the Alum Cave Trail where Trevor had last been seen. Finding his footprints turned out to be easy. The ranger's boot prints led clearly along the trail, but after a few hundred meters, it suddenly broke off. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of other people or wild animals. The area where Trevor disappeared was thoroughly surveyed. Experienced trackers searched every corner, but found nothing that could explain his disappearance. The place had literally been searched hundreds of times. On the 4th day of the search, one of the volunteers accidentally found Trevor Green's body 6 kilometers from the point of his disappearance. The body was lying on a small hillock in the middle of a thick thicket. Not only was this spot far from the trail, but it was off the route Trevor was supposed to be patrolling. The strangest thing, however, was that the area had already been checked by the searchers the day before, and there had been nothing there then. The condition of the body added to the mystery. There were no obvious injuries on him that could indicate the cause of death. His clothes were in order and his boots were neatly buttoned. Next to him lay his radio, which appeared to be turned off, although the battery was fully charged. The pathologist anatomist who performed the autopsy was unable to determine the exact cause of death. All internal organs were normal, and there were no signs of poisoning. The only thing that raised questions was the expression on Trevor's face. It was frozen in an unnatural grimace of horror. The place where the body had been found raised many questions. It was so secluded and inaccessible that it was almost impossible to get there on foot without special equipment. There were no traces around to indicate that Trevor had somehow gotten there. How he ended up there remains a mystery. His notebook was also found at the discovery site. Most of the entries were standard. He described the route, the weather, and notes on the park. Trevor's disappearance and death spawned many theories. Some thought he was the victim of an accident. Perhaps he became disoriented and died of hypothermia. But the absence of signs of struggle, the strange location of the body, made this version unlikely. Others suggested that he might have encountered some natural phenomenon, The Great Smoky Mountains area is known to occasionally experience unusual atmospheric phenomena, such as strange lights or fog. Trevor may have seen something similar that caused him to panic or become disoriented. The most mystical version was the suggestion that he had encountered something supernatural. Years later, the Trevor Green case remains unsolved. His death adds another mystery to the long list of unexplained disappearances in U.S. national parks. The ranger's colleagues still remember him as a seasoned professional who would never break protocol or get lost. In April 1991, Lawrence Lee Williams, a seasoned ranger with 20 years of experience, went on a routine patrol in a remote part of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Williams was known as a man who navigated the terrain perfectly and knew every trail in the park. However, he never returned to base that day, and his disappearance still remains one of the strangest mysteries in the park's history. April 10, 1991, began for Lawrence with the usual ritual: a cup of strong coffee, a check of equipment, and a route sheet. That day, he was assigned to inspect a section along the Forney Creek Trail, known for its dense rhododendron thickets and isolation. Lawrence noted that the weather was calm, with a light morning haze characteristic of the area. He was last seen by coworkers around 8 a.m. when he drove his Jeep to the start of the trail. The plan was for him to return by 6 p.m. When Lawrence did not show up by the appointed time and did not respond to calls on his radio, park management immediately launched a search. A team of rangers found his Jeep parked near the beginning of the Forney Creek Trail. The vehicle was locked, and inside was his backpack with food and water supplies. This raised questions, as Lawrence never went out on patrol without a minimum set of gear. Footprints on the ground showed that he had headed out on foot along the trail. After about a kilometer, searchers found fresh boot prints from Lawrence. But that's when things got weird. The tracks led toward a small creek, but after a few meters they stopped, as if it had evaporated. There was no sign of struggle, animal tracks, or damaged vegetation. The rangers carefully searched the surrounding area, but found nothing that could shed any light on his disappearance. The next day, the search continued using sniffer dogs. However, the dogs that had picked up the trail from the Jeep suddenly lost it exactly where the creek was located. This place caused inexplicable anxiety for many of the search participants. They reported a strange feeling of anxiety and dizziness. 2 days later, the first mysterious find was discovered a kilometer away from the creek. Lawrence's walkie-talkie was lying under a bush, turned off. On its case were visible strange scratches resembling marks made by something sharp. Analysis showed that these marks could not have been left by the claws of an animal. By then, rescuers, volunteers, and even helicopters had joined the search. However, no new traces of Lawrence appeared. The disappearance of Lawrence Williams caused a lot of discussion among his colleagues, local residents, and investigators. Despite the official theory that he may have gotten lost or been the victim of an accident, there were details that cast doubt on this explanation. One of the first theories was the suggestion of medical problems. A few months after his disappearance, Lawrence's friends recalled that he sometimes complained of sudden headaches and brief loss of orientation. No one paid much attention to this, as he did not like to discuss his health. However, an informal inquiry revealed that Lawrence had been diagnosed with epilepsy as a child, which he said was in remission. The investigation considered the possibility that he may have lost consciousness while on patrol, which led to his disappearance. But the absence of a body, or any obvious trace of the event, left that theory in doubt. There were also speculations related to Lawrence's personal life. Some colleagues claimed that in recent months he had become more withdrawn and avoided talking. The investigation revealed that a few weeks before his disappearance, he had received a letter from his ex-wife, whom they had divorced 10 years earlier. The letter appeared to contain a request for a meeting, but no one knew what might have caused this. It was suggested that emotional strain may have distracted his attention while on patrol, leading to the accident. Another theory concerned his job. Lawrence was known for his integrity and had repeatedly confronted people who violated park rules. He repeatedly reported suspicious poachers in remote parts of the park to management. Although none of the incidents seemed serious enough for someone to commit a crime, his colleagues did not rule out the possibility that he might have encountered someone who should not have been seen. The wild animal theory remained the most realistic for many. However, no blood, clothing remnants, or signs of a struggle were ever found. In addition, experts pointed out that a bear or a cougar, when attacking a person, always leaves signs of its activity. Williams, on the other hand, seemed to have vanished. Despite official statements, several facts that surfaced during the search remained unexplained. The first strange clue was the condition of the compass Lawrence found. When it was found on a rock mound near the trail, the compass hand rotated continuously, as if the instrument was near a strong magnetic field. However, geologists called in to study the site found no minerals or other factors in the area that could explain the phenomenon. Among Lawrence's belongings was found his notebook, which he always carried with him. The first few pages had the usual entries about weather, routes, and wildlife observations. But one of the last pages stood out. The entire sheet was crossed out and the paper was torn in places, as if someone had tried to erase or destroy something. Forensic experts also noted an oddity. Although no signs of a struggle or attack were found at the scene of the disappearance, the soil around his boots was scrutinized. The examination showed that Lawrence's prints suddenly broke off, as if he had simply stopped walking. No bounce, fall, or other signs of movement were recorded. This raised many questions. How could he have disappeared in a place where there were no shelters, water, or cliffs for hundreds of meters around? However, despite extensive searches, he was never found. The official report stated that the ranger probably died as a result of an accident or wild animal attack, but the absence of a body and blood cast doubt on this conclusion. Rumors of his disappearance continue to circulate among locals and park employees. Some believe that Lawrence has encountered something supernatural. That's about it. These disappearances remain real mysteries for which there are still no explanations. We can only speculate as to what was really going on with these rangers. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell so you don't miss new videos. Write in the comments what you think about these disappearances. We'd love to hear what you think. See you soon, bye.